Imagine after going through an engineering career for 25 years, you start your own firm, and in just a short amount of time, it becomes wildly successful. That's exactly what happened to our guest for today's Civil Engineering Podcast episode, Walfrido Pevida, founder and chief engineer at Pevida Highway Designers. His story is inspirational. He talks about how he built the company, some chances that he took, how he's focused on the culture now, and it really is an exciting experience. And if you're interested in starting your own company, I hope that this is helpful for you. Our episode for today is brought to you by Colliers Engineering and Design. Colliers Engineering and Design is a multidiscipline engineering firm with over 1,800 employees in 63 offices nationwide and growing fast. Colliers Engineering and Design maintains an internal culture that is nurtured through the promotion of integrity, collaboration, and socialization. Their employees enjoy hybrid work environments, continuous career advancement, health and wellness offerings, and programs and projects that have a positive impact on society. Colliers Engineering and Design stays on the cutting edge of technology, and their entrepreneurial approach to expansion provides personal and professional development opportunities across the firm. Leadership's dedication to the well-being of their employees and their families is demonstrated throughout the wide range of benefits and programs available to them. For more information, visit the career page on their website at colliersengineering.com. All right, now I'd like to welcome on our guest for today's show, Walfrido Pevida, founder and chief engineer at Pevida Highway Designers. Walfrido, welcome to the Civil Engineering Podcast.
Oh, thanks, Anthony. Thanks for having me.
So just to get us kind of started here, Walfrido, in your own words, maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself, your journey in starting your firm and, kind of what you do today on a daily basis.
Sure, Anthony. First of all, I was born in Miami, first generation Cuban American, and I've lived my whole life here. I went to middle school, high school. When I graduated high school, I went to the University of Miami, so I stayed here. I got a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering, and then after that, I decided to get a Master's in Business Administration. I was not sure whether to get a Master's in Science and Engineering or Business Administration, but I kind of felt like I was very technical already, so I decided to do the MBA route. And I went to Florida International University here again in Miami. So I've grown up here in Miami. I started my career as a bridge engineer in 1991. And I spent 2 years at this firm. It was a large company. At the time, the company's name was Post Buckley Shoe and Jernigan. They've since been acquired by Atkins and now SNC Lavalin. But when I was there, it was Post Buckley. I was there for 2 years. I did bridges. But it was a big organization, and I decided to try something else. I wanted to get more my hands on more of the project, not just a bridge pier or a beam, but the overall bridge if possible, and maybe even one day the overall project. So I joined a smaller firm called C3TS here in Miami, and I went there and I did bridges for a while, and at some point I started doing traffic control plans, then roadway plans, and then ultimately after I got my MBA, I recognized the value of interacting with the client and understanding like what the overall project, what's best for the overall project, and try to influence that. So I started doing more roadway design. The company that I joined, at the time I joined, there was about 25 people, C3TS, and I worked there for over 20 years. And at one point we sold it to a large company called Stantec Consulting Services that acquired us in December of 2012. But while I was at C3TS, I really got an opportunity being in a small firm to, work on a lot of different aspects of civil engineering besides bridges, roadway. And I also got to, become a project manager, work with clients, and understand and gain an appreciation for the business side of civil engineering. And I always wanted to have my own firm, and I got that opportunity at C3TS. They made me a partner, and I became a vice president, and I was running the transportation practice. And another thing that I grew there while I was there was the design, what they call alternative project delivery or design build. That became a type of procurement where they engage the both the contractor and the designer. We team up And the designer typically looks to provide some innovative solutions that improve quality, cost, time to build the job, but while collaborating, working directly with the contractor who then becomes our client. And then we compete with other design build teams. And that became something that I really enjoyed. I like to be creative and think of ways that can improve traffic, quality of life. That became a big thing for me. And, I got inspired by that. And also, I got an opportunity to open an office in Orlando from Miami. So we did that. So I spent about 20 years there. We got acquired by Stantec, and I became kind of like an overall Florida practice leader for them.
So, Walfrido, obviously you had a lot of experience, working for a small firm is great, and that you can see a lot, you do a lot of different things. And it sounds like you were, entrepreneurial. Talk to us about the decision to kind of open your firm, how that went for you, what that process was like.
Yeah. After spending at the time about 25 years, and I was 46, and, starting my own firm was something that I, always thought about when I graduated. And having worked for 25 years and different levels and ultimately in increasing levels of leadership and responsibility, I saw things that, that I really liked. And then I saw some things that I didn't really care for. And I got to learn from all of that. And I decided that, after 3 years with a large firm, I decided that I wanted to go ahead and go on my own and start my own company. It was a big risk for me, at the time. I was established. I had, pretty good income, but it was a dream that I wanted to follow. And I wanted to do something, but I wanted to be different. I didn't necessarily want to follow what other companies had been doing that I had seen, even the ones that were successful. I wanted to pave my own way and leverage the skills that I had personally, which was, being creative, thinking outside the box. I think a lot of people in the industry thought of me as someone that comes up with innovative ideas. And that's sort of what when I started my own firm, I wanted to brand myself into someone who's an outside the box kind of thinker. And we coined a few things. If you look at us on LinkedIn, by the way, we've done extremely well on LinkedIn. I think we have like over 2,800 followers in just 6 years, which is pretty good for our industry. And we coined the think big. Something big is happening, because, I think those are two things that drive, my firm and our culture. It's, challenge people to think about ways to improve quality of life. And I wanted to do that. And, I think starting my own firm and gives me an opportunity to create my own boundaries and remove any obstacles from achieving those goals.
That's great. So let's talk about that a little bit, because, company culture is a very important thing as you're growing a company, as whether it's, a mission, a vision, like you said, think big, having a philosophy. Talk about the importance of some of these things in helping you to, get everybody on the same page when you're growing a company, to kind of have a common theme around a company, a culture, mission, vision. People call these all different things, and then maybe they are different in some ways, but how do you approach that with your firm?
Yeah, I'll be honest, like when I started the company, culture wasn't the thing that I, put on my business plan. It sort of started happening. And I give credit. There was a student in Iowa State University who was getting their PhD, and they reached out to me and they asked me if I didn't mind granting an interview. They were studying how the DBE program, or the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise program, helps small firms. So it really had nothing to do with culture, but he asked me a very profound question. He asked me, hey, Walfrido, you've been in leadership, first at CRTS and later at Stantec, and you've been in these companies. But what's different about being a leader at Pevida, Highway Designers? And, and I thought about it, I maybe took 30 seconds, a minute, and I said, what, it's different, it's culture. When I was in a company with 16,000, 20,000 employees, to pull that lever, it's almost impossible. It takes maybe 2,000, 5,000 people to change the culture of a company that's that big. But in my company, guess what? I'm the founder, I'm the CEO, I run it. I just got to blow wind on that lever and it's going to move and I can really make a dramatic impact. So he got me thinking about it. And even though it was something that, was in my consciousness about the culture, all the things you said, Anthony, about, how important it is to bring people together. I started thinking, you know what, we need to define it. So I knew that one of the things I wanted to do, and also something that I learned along the way, is to keep great people engaged and to get people excited, is you have to really provide, as an engineering firm, an opportunity to work on projects that are meaningful. What I mean by that is, landmark projects. For example, right now, I have the honor of working on the I-395 Signature Bridge project. It's a big job. We're building an iconic signature bridge over Biscayne Boulevard here in Miami. And I'm the design director for that project. And what an honor, what a privilege it is that thing's going to stand there for over 100 years. And I had something to do with it. And I think that engineers that are really interested and love what they do and are passionate about it, they want to be able to work on those types of projects. So for me to work on those types of projects, we have to be able to scale the size of the projects we're working on as a small firm and get to participate in them. So we've been able to do that, leveraging my design build expertise with contractors, my relationships, and give our people a chance. And by being able to work on larger projects, you increase the longevity of their employment with us, and it decreases the potential for them to leave to go to another firm that has the same opportunities. So we defined our culture into like engineering excellence. We're very big on technical. We also want to have fun. It's not just work all day. So, we've done Nerf gun wars. We have a ping pong table in the office. We have Halloween competitions between ourselves. We do all kinds of stuff like that. We collaborate with all of our offices. We have 3 offices, Miami or West Palm and Orlando, a lot of great collaboration. And then another thing that we try to do is, give people time off. I started a tradition that we would give everyone the day after the Super Bowl off. Not a lot of companies do that, but we thought that's pretty cool. And also, I also give them, and I don't take their PTO or anything off of it. I give them the days between Christmas and New Year's off, as a gift. Because, I want people to be able to enjoy time with their families as well. I know I demand a lot from them. So it's my responsibility to give back to them whenever I can. So I try to do those things. And
that's great. That's really important. And I think the one thing that I just want to kind of touch on there from what Walfrido said, because this is part of our Civil Engineering Entrepreneurs series. And I'm sure a lot of you listening are either growing your own firms or you're maybe interested in doing it. And I think the point about, being able to change the culture is important, because when you start a company, as you grow it, 10 people, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100, even 200, you can maybe still change things without a ton of work, a ton of effort. When you start getting firms into like 500, 1,000, 1,500, and like Walfrido said, 20,000 people, it becomes very difficult at that point, because the habits you built from the beginning are going to be kind of rooted pretty deeply at that point. So if you're growing a company, the sooner you can establish some of these habits, really focus on your culture, put some of these routines and practices into place, it's only going to help you as you grow and really help you to grow. And because that's what I've seen, some companies that come to us that want us to help them with things, now they're at 500 people or 1,500 people. And for us to help them, we can do it, but it's a very big effort. And so, it's like anything else in life. When a kid starts eating vegetables when they're a kid, they're probably going to be eating them when they're older. When they don't, they're not going to start eating them. So very, very, interesting and important things to think about. So, let's talk about people more for a minute. Walfrido, you talked about how you take care of your people, some of the things that you do. I mean, people are obviously a critical component of building a business, especially a civil engineering firm, because we're so team driven on our projects. Talk about, how you, find the right people for Pevida, how you develop them, how do you retain them? How do you just focus on your people development?
that's a good question. I mean, I think, letting go, it's a big challenge for a lot of us, right? We don't want to let go of something. Do we trust, the junior engineer, to handle some of the, more complex engineering tasks, or or to take on some of the management tasks, and delegate that work to them, and do it in a responsible way, where your clients are not going to see a drop off, in the quality of technical services or management services. But it's important. I wouldn't be where I am today. We've grown our organization now, to like 67 people in 6 years. I'm almost at 70 now. We've been getting some of that best talent in Florida to come work for us. And I think, people are seeing that they're coming here, they're getting an opportunity to do things that maybe they weren't allowed to do. For example, when I talk to people, I think some of the bigger firms or some of the more established companies, they have these organizational structures and they have all these boxes, and they try to see what box do people fit in. I don't think that way. To me, I'll talk to you, Anthony. If you came to work for us and you were interested, I'm going to first ask you, what is it that you like doing? What gets you excited? What makes you want to go to work every day? And you say, hey, I like communications. I want to get out there. I want to talk about what a great company we have and broadcast that to the state, to the country, and help us expand into other places. I want to take that positive energy that you have, and I'm going to create a position in my company where you can thrive and succeed. And that's what I look at, when I talk to people. And I noticed that a lot of engineers nowadays feel like the only way to move up the ladder is by being a project manager or getting on the business side. And I see a lot of firms that are kind of, prioritizing that or rewarding those types of skills that are very important. But also the technical skills. I tell our engineers, we're an engineers firm. We don't get paid to sign timesheets and expense reports. We get paid to develop engineering solutions to very complex problems. And I think a lot of great engineers get excited about that. Wow, this is a company that really cares about the engineering. Of course we care about the management and the business side, but we also care equally about the engineering and creating a space where engineering excellence is going to thrive, and I think that's important for us.
Yeah, that's great. And, I really love that, because I think when you put people into boxes, there's limitations, of course. And, people don't necessarily want to be put into boxes. I mean, maybe they want some structure to some degree, but they also, I'm sure, want to be able to do what they like to do. I mean, listen, the world of civil engineering is changing so dramatically. There's new technologies every day. There's bigger projects every day, that I tell people all the time that you may start your career as a civil engineer doing one thing and then start doing something that didn't even exist when you graduated college, because it's just a new part of our industry.
Yeah.
So I think having those kind of conversations with people is great, because, people don't, people want to try new things. That's exciting for them. It keeps things interesting for them. And so I think that that's great. And for me, I started at a very small firm myself. And I think that's what I liked about it, because I got to see everything. I got to go in the field. I got to come in the office. I got to do design work. I got to do kind of a little bit of everything. My boss would take me on client meetings because there just wasn't a lot of people there. So, so that exposure, I think getting to have those conversations with your supervisor, with the owner of the firm, is very beneficial. So, as you grow, Walfrido, because you are growing, it's almost 70 people now. I know from talking to a lot of professionals in engineering that what's really important to them in the companies that they work for today is like career growth and development support, right? I mean, a lot of companies in civil engineering are doing good. They can give good salaries, they can give good benefits, but they want to know that the company is going to support their career, help them with their development efforts. How do you handle that, especially as you grow? Because obviously it becomes a bigger challenge. Now you have 70 people that might need development, technical training. Like you said, technical is important, management training. Do you have a process, or how do you address that for people?
No, we've done a number of things. One of the things that I learned, in one of my previous companies was, I got to learn a lot about the business when they invited me into the ownership, and I sat around the table with some of the other owners. And for the first time, I started hearing about what some of the challenges are, besides the engineering challenges, but also the business challenges, insurance, liability, opening offices, negotiating leases, just all different types of things that, as a civil engineering student, you don't necessarily learn about, you just learn about it on the job. And so I decided, that when I started the firm in our first year or second year, and then every year after that, we started having these strategic meetings. And it gave what I thought about was it gave everyone an opportunity. I opened up to them. By the way, I'm very transparent in my business. I like everyone to know what's going on. And these strategic meetings, what I did was I kind of started talking to people about, hey, how big do we want to get? The first year we talked about, do we want to get to 25 people, 50 or 100? And let's think about what are the consequences of that. That means we might have to add another service line, like structures and bridges, or maybe we have to go to West Palm or Orlando if we're going to get, scale our size. And having these open conversations, discussions with them, do we want to open this particular service? We want to start doing traffic or PD&E or major bridges, and what's it going to cost to do that? How much time, who's going to do that type of work? I think allowed them to kind of see, some of them were, several years younger than me, and, they hadn't been exposed to leadership. So I think that allowed them to kind of get a taste of what, it is to grow a company. And, that helps me to create, leadership. I also invested in leadership training. A friend of mine, Dave Lawrence at Crestcom, came by, and we decided to invest in that. And for three or 4 years in a row, I sent, some of our leaders to that training. I personally took the training the first year and got to, work with other people, other professionals and other industries, and who face similar challenges, and go through the 1 year program that Dave put together. And I invited my team, and I sent my team, year after year to those trainings. So, try to lead by example, show them what I've learned, talk to them, be open, transparent, be available, communicate, give them invest in training so that they get the leadership training that they need, because ultimately my success is based on their success. I can't grow if I don't build leaders around me. So it's my job as a leader to build new leaders.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. And I love, how you're transparent and you're, talking with them about the growth of the company. I do think that that's important, and really just keeps people engaged, and they feel like they're really part of something, which is great. So let's talk about problems for a minute. When you build any business, especially a civil engineering business that has a lot of different parts, you inevitably encounter problems along the way, as an entrepreneur, as a leader. And you seem like a big thinker. We've been talking about that as something that you like to really focus on. How do you, or the company, how do you kind of identify and deal with problems as they arise? What is your approach to that?
Yeah, there's a lot of, you said problems, and yeah, definitely there's a lot of those that are going to come up, as a leader, as someone, we've grown a very successful practice. Believe me, there's been many problems and setbacks along the way, and it hasn't been easy. When you're starting a firm, I always tell people, some of the folks that joined me from big companies, especially, they come in like in year 2 or year 3. And like, what's the process for this? What's the procedure? I said, we don't have one, man. If I spent the first year of my business writing processes and procedures, I probably wouldn't be here in the third year right now. The first thing I had to do is go out and win work, and then I had to get people to get the work done. And then we started writing processes and procedures, which we're still working on. We don't have them all figured out yet. And I don't want to get into a bureaucracy. So I think one of the things that happens as you're growing a firm is you're attracting talent, and you're attracting people that you haven't worked with before, and many of them are coming from different backgrounds and different companies and have had different experiences. And oftentimes, some things that you're used to doing, they haven't done before. They might push, be a little standoffish. Maybe they're resisting some of those changes. But I think that's part of the problems that you have is, working with people that come from different backgrounds, but then somehow finding common ground and agreeing on how we should best move forward, and including them in some of the decisions that we're making as we go forward. That was a challenge. Opening new offices is always a big challenge as well. Having an office in West Palm and Orlando, it's a challenge, help making them feel like they're part of the overall corporate headquarters, because I live in Miami. I go to the Miami office every day, and I travel occasionally to Orlando and West Palm to visit them. I'm not there every day. So the people in Miami have access to me. All of our back office, HR, accounting, marketing, all of those folks are in Miami. So it's a challenge, to communicate with the other offices and make them feel like, hey, you're not being ignored or forgotten. You're part of us, and having that's also a big challenge that we've had to overcome, is how to collaborate with them, how to make them feel part of the overall unit. We've had to do that in a number of ways. At one point we had monthly face-to-face meetings. Now with the pandemic, we're seeing, increasing use of, Teams meetings, Zoom meetings, and so forth. So those are some of the problems, Anthony, that we've had is, it's just, integrating new people, that come from different companies, even different cultural backgrounds, all of us, and then finding common ground with them.
So, Walfrido, from more of an industry perspective in the civil engineering world right now, what do you see as some of the bigger challenges? I mean, listen, there's a lot of work right now, so getting work isn't necessarily a challenge. And then we've got the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, which is going to now be deploying more funds and more projects. But from an industry-wide standpoint, what do you see as maybe a challenge that's going to come here, or that is here now for firms that are trying to grow in the civil world? Because I know on the outside looking in, everything looks very positive, but I'm sure that there are some things that you might see as an owner that might be challenging here.
I always say, finding people, being able to recruit and hire people. I think, historically, most engineering firms are very worried about winning work. And that's always been, in our industry, in the service industry, trying to make sure that you have enough work to keep your staff employed year in and year out, and then have some growth on it, has been a top priority. But I think one of the things that maybe hasn't been valued as much is finding, the right people that fit your culture and that can help you grow the organization. I sometimes I remember being in the other companies where I worked at, they were like, well, you really can't hire until you have enough backlog. How much backlog do you have? And I totally 100% disagree with that mentality. For me, I'm hiring all the time, 24/7, because the best people and the best engineers in our business, and this is probably the biggest challenge we have, is having the resources to deliver the work program that we're going to be seeing coming up. We have in Florida, we have a very robust work program, but it's going to get even bigger now with the Jobs Act. And when those funds start flowing into Florida, we're going to need more and more people. So you asked me what the biggest challenge is: finding good people. And we're looking all the time, 24/7. We're looking for not just the people that are on the street that don't have a job. We're looking for the people that are gainfully employed. They're happy. They're doing great things. But, have you ever thought maybe you could do better? Maybe you can go to an organization that's not going to limit your growth, but that's going to give you no ceiling, and you're going to get to accomplish what you did. So I think that's a big challenge, is finding the right people. And now, in my case, I'm looking to find organizations, because I think another way to meet those challenges is going to be to acquire companies that are out there. And I'd be interested in teaming with other like-minded individuals like myself that have built companies with great cultures and that can make a great team and help us grow a premier transportation practice, not only in Florida, not only in the Southeast, but in the United States.
Wow, that's great. That's exciting. That's all exciting stuff. And yeah, I agree with you in that approach in terms of hiring. I mean, listen, it shouldn't be about hiring someone when you need work. It should be about always finding the right people, not just when you're too busy to do work. So, because like you said, you never know when you're going to find the right person. So if you find them, get them on board now, get them working. I mean, I think we have a good idea that there's going to be plenty of work in this industry for, the near future for sure. So that's great. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back with Walfrido. We're going to put him on the civil engineering hot seat and ask a couple of last career related questions. We'll be right back. All right, we are back with our guest, Walfrido Pevida, founder and chief engineer of Pevida Highway Designers. And now we're going to put Walfrey on the civil engineering hot seat. You ready?
Sure.
All right. All right. So, first question: do you have any specific rituals that you practice every day? For example, do you have a specific morning routine or lunchtime routine, something that you do consistently on a daily basis that has contributed to your success?
Anthony, I don't have like a daily routine. I know that I many times I've tried, going on a diet or working out and try to create like a routine. And oftentimes my job, interferes with that, traveling, having to work late sometimes to get a proposal in or a submittal with a deadline. So what I found is, for me anyways, for me, what works is to have certain things in your life, besides work, that create interest, like hobbies. I've started a few things here in the last year and a half, and that I try to do on a regular basis. And maybe it's not the same day, maybe it's not the same hour, but the frequency every week is what I kind of focus on. So I've started working out, taking care of my health, and I've been doing high intensity interval training. I try to do that 3 times a week. I've also started playing golf. I do that on the weekends, maybe once a week. I'll go and I'll do like nine holes or something like that. And also something else I picked up, which I never thought I'd do, is I started doing like ballroom dancing. So I picked up that hobby. And those things are nice things that, complement what you're doing. I think, we work hard, and the stress levels at work, can be quite extreme. And, having something else on the side, I think that distract you. And also, better quality of life. I think it's good to have a well-balanced life, and to take care of yourself, your health, and also just other hobbies, things that make you happy, and get more fulfillment out of life.
Yeah, that's great. No, I agree with you. In fact, my wife and I did ballroom dancing for a few years, and it was like once we signed up, we were like, we have to go. It's kind of like we were kind of like, we were forcing ourselves to do it, and it was really great. And we never would have thought we would have been able to do it with the kids and everything, but we worked it out because we just kind of
That's
committed
great.
to it. And like you said, it's when you have things like that going on in your life, you could just be more fulfilled, kind of happier overall. And I always think that also helps you at work. You're kind of more productive, your head's in the right place. So there's
Yeah,
no
absolutely. Absolutely. And you meet people from different walks of life, and doing that sort of stuff, not just other engineers. So you get to, it's eye-opening. You get to learn about other people's experiences, their cultures, where they're from. And it's fulfilling.
For sure. All right, next question. Do you have a book that you might recommend to engineers, or not even engineering related, just any book that you found to be helpful in your personal and professional development? Sometimes something stands out for us and we kind of carry it with us.
Yeah, it's not a very long read or a very sophisticated book, but the Who Moved My Cheese book, I think, I think it's a very powerful book. I see a lot of people that get stuck in a rut, and they don't move, and things just become stagnant and dull and stale. And I practice this quite a bit. I often stop and reflect on what's happened the last 6 months, the last year. Have these things that I tried, are they really working? And if they're not working, move on to something else. Don't be afraid to acknowledge, what, I made a decision, it didn't work out, I need to move in another direction. And I think that's what that book, just kind of teaches you, that sometimes, life brings about changes, and be prepared when it does, because that is the norm. It's not the unusual. The change is the norms. And that book, I think about it a lot, and it's not only in business, it's in your personal life. Oftentimes things happen, they change, they're not what they seem to be anymore, and just need to be prepared to put yourself out there. I think a lot of people are afraid to put themselves in a state of vulnerability. And I talk about being vulnerable. I think it's very important. And actually, it's been one of the more rewarding things that I've done, starting my own business, not knowing, what's coming. I mean, I invested over $300,000 of my own money in about 4 or 5 months, and I only had like $10,000 in income to show for it. It was a very, stressful time for me, but I overcame. I believed in myself. I put myself out there, and even though I've been doing this for 25 years, so many opportunities that I thought were going to happen didn't happen. But yet there were so many new opportunities that I never imagined that came along. And what it did was I created a lot of confidence in myself, and it's very rewarding to know that opportunities are out there for you. It's okay, just they move the cheese, go out there, man, and go find some new stuff. Because if you stay where you're at because you're afraid to make change, you're not going to get a rewarding life living that way.
Yeah, for sure. No, I mean, it's one of my favorite books, and it's by Spencer Johnson. Definitely check it out. Who Moved My Cheese? And it is a very quick read. Like Walfrido said, I think you can read in an hour or two. And really, books like that are great because they're kind of a little bit of a story and it helps you to remember them. Like you said, you keep thinking about it. You're always thinking about it. So definitely a great book there. All right. Next question that I have for you. You mentioned you had, jobs, some larger companies, different companies for the first part of your career. When you think back on some of your managers of the past, and you don't have to name names, but if you just think of some of your favorite managers, what made them your favorite, Walfrido? What were the characteristics? We're just trying to understand some of the characteristics of really great managers in the world of civil engineering.
Yeah, I mean, I think great managers are the ones that have always challenged me um, to do basically not to box me into a particular task or group, but just to challenge me to think about what's good for the overall project, or what are the overall goals, and not to put me inside of a box. And I think that's what I found. Whether it was, when I first graduated, I worked with a particular gentleman who I was doing bridges, and he's like, Walfrido, you really need to think about what's going on, with the road approaching the bridge, not just the bridge alone. You need to understand how the bridge relates to everything else on the job. And that those type of eye-opening things, and then when I went to work for a small firm, and I was given opportunity to work on, some wastewater projects. I got to work on, besides bridge, I started doing some traffic control plans, roadway plans, drainage, understanding that, hey, I have the skill sets that I acquired in college, to, compute and do some of the analysis that, is being asked of me. Let me expand my horizon. So the best mentors, have always taught me that, don't limit yourself just to what you see in front of you. Think beyond what's there. Be responsible for the work. Take ownership of what you're doing. And I have always had natural passion for what I've done, but also work ethic is important. Have a good work ethic is critical in achieving a lot of great success as well.
That's great. Great advice. All right. So I've got one final question for you, Walfrido. We call it the civil engineering career elevator advice question. So if you got into an elevator with, let's say, a younger civil engineer, earlier on in their career, and you had maybe 30 to 40 seconds with that person, what career advice would you give them in that short period of time?
Yeah, I had dinner last night with a friend of mine. He just started his own firm, and he was asking me almost the same exact question. My answer is the same. It's as an engineer, you have a reputation, and I think that's very important. And it sounds kind of cheesy, but doing the right thing. And I think that's gotten me to where I am. I've been put in many positions over my career, especially since I do a lot of design build work, where I work for the contractor, not necessarily the DOT, even though DOT is the #1 client in Florida. And sometimes I tell the contractor, what, I'm not going to do that. That's not safe. That doesn't, I won't sign and seal those plans. And at the same time, the department might ask me to do something that I don't think is right, and I'll stand up to it. And I'll do what's right. Some people might say, well, just say whatever the client wants them to say. That's not me. I'm going to do whatever the right thing is for the project, for our public in general. And I think I've been able to do that. And I'm very consistent, year in, year out. I've been that kind of person. And just like I might get into a heated debate with my contractor, I'll do the same thing with the department, with the DOT. I'm going to fight for what I think is right. And I think it's very important to protect your reputation and to stand and to be a principled engineer, not just do what, you know, the client wants you to do, but do what's right for the project and for the public.
That's great. Awesome. All right. Well, Walfrido Pevida, founder and chief engineer at Pevida Highway Designers, I want to thank you so much for taking some time and spending it with us here on the Civil Engineering Podcast. Thank you, Walfrido.
Thank you for having me, Anthony. Appreciate it.
So thanks again to Walfrido. I hope you enjoyed the episode today. We put out episodes like this on a weekly basis, so please be sure to click the subscribe button here. Our videos are always focused on helping engineers become better managers and better leaders. We'll see you next week.